So now I am really excited to introduce a young artist, Lorenzo Herrera y Lozano. He is a queer Chicano writer of Raimuri, did I say that correctly? Raimuri descent. Lorenzo Herrera y Lozano is the author of Santo de la Pata Elzada, poems from the queer Chicano Positive Pen, co-author of Tragic Bitches, an experiment in queer Chicana and Chicano performance poetry, and the forthcoming Amorcito Maricón, poems from 3 heartlands. He is the editor of 3 queer people of color anthologies, Queer Codex, Chile Love, Queer Codex Rooted, and the forthcoming Foto, an anthology of queer Chicano and I think that must be Chicana poetry. A groundbreaking collection of poems from over 60 queer Chicana and Chicano-identified gay men from across the U.S. A member of Sandra Cisneros' Macondo Writers Workshop, Lorenzo's work has also appeared in Mariposas, a modern anthology of queer Latino poetry. Ziziba, thank you for that. That's a tongue twister for me. Ziziba, a journal of West Coast writers and artists, Yellow Medicine Review, and for colored boys who have considered suicide when the rainbow is still not enough, coming of age, coming out, and coming home. And I just want to say that I went online to learn more about your work, Lorenzo, and I was just shattered by the power of it. So I'm really excited to introduce you today. Welcome, Lorenzo.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Buenas noches. I may have to pull a Marco Rubio at some point and drink water, so please excuse me. So first I just want to say thank you. Thank you, Chaira. Thank you, Eve. It is such an honor to be here, and such an honor to be speaking alongside Jewel Gomez and Sharon Bridgeforth. I don't know if this means I have arrived or if it means someone made a really big mistake. Whatever the reason, thank you. The first poetry workshop I ever went to was facilitated by Sharon Bridgeforth, who is a mentor, a reverend, a daddy, all kinds of things. Holds my poet heart, my poet hand, kicks my butt when I don't write, and it's been a love affair that's been going on for almost 13 years. So thank you, thank you. So I was thinking when I received the invitation and was reading the description and trying to wrap my head around what was being asked of me, and just seeing like the role of writers, of artists, grappling with contemporary issues in queer communities, in particular queer communities of color. And I was reminded of about a week or 2 after my first book was published, I was invited to speak at a university. And I won't mention the university, but I will say that it was their Mexican American Studies department. And it was a part of a series of speakers over the course of a semester, and the director of the department, who was not the person who invited me, he was a rogue scholar who had invited me, but the director introduced the evening, and introduced by saying the series that we've had a number of people who, critical thinkers, academics, and theorists, and today we'll just have poetry. And so I've since believed that we are the theorists we've been waiting for. And so I'm going to read an essay that's actually in For Colored Boys, and it's called Poetry of the Flesh, and it's inspired, it's both in a reaction to that moment and also inspired by Sherry Moraga's Theory of the Flesh. And I don't normally translate, but will just offer a translation for one word. That is the word joto, which is, I guess a closer translation would be faggot. And it's a word that has been reclaimed and is really for people of Mexican descent in particular, Chicanas and Chicanos, and a word that we hold very dear to our heart and through our process of reclamation. So yeah. And also the essay has poems interwoven, so I'll be trying to shift voices. I'll see how successful I could be at that. As a queer Chicano poet, I have long been obsessively interested in the intersections of identities, desires, and survival strategies that stem from, are informed by, and contest the various and often conflicting political and cultural ideologies that collide within our embodied multiplicity. For many of us whose identities are gender and sexually expansive, we're well aware of the intersections we sit in. Whether you're a black lesbian mother, an HIV-positive immigrant joto, a bi-identified trans professor, or any manifestation of these and other identities and experiences, poetry can surely be found in the crevices created by the caresses and struggles of our tectonic realities. Poetry is a site for realization. Jotos. Jotos build movements in each other's arms, recite manifestos without making a sound, create ceremony in back alleys. We are the dead angels under each other's feet. Jotos kiss bruised after-school bullies, find beauty with thick, thin, and absent hair. Our calves carry drum beats. We are echoes, kept as walnut shells, guarding their souls. Virgins, mighty, soft, callous, unwrapped, rebirth, penetrated, full, wounded hands, and still we feed. Jotos rejoice in subtle feathers and sparkle, dance under suns hovering above dance floors. Above, we are bright, we are unbroken spirits, almost free. In 2001, I was a young Joto graduate student attending San Jose State University's Mexican American Studies program. It was the first year I attended the National Association for Chicana and Chicano Studies, also known as NACS, conference. It was the year Shiri Moraga received the Scholar of the Year award, and it was the first time I was surrounded by people who not only looked like me, but also desired and loved like me. And I will, quick side note, the year that Shiri Moraga received the Scholar of the Year award, there was a huge controversy because many felt that she wasn't in fact a scholar. And so relevant to today. In her speech, Moraga honored the queer brown men who we lost due to a pandemic that attempted to decimate generations and admonished their non-queer brothers who saw it happen, calling on them to turn to the young Jotos in the room and recognize us as their brothers. It was during this speech that I learned my lineage. In that moment, I realized what the poet Marvin K. White says, "We don't just appear, we come from somewhere." It was in Moraga's words that I came to understand that these queer men of color are my forefathers. The week following the 2001 Knox conference, I was diagnosed with HIV. As the testing counselor read her routine and lifeless speech, I began to think of Moraga's words. I realized that as I sat in the audience in Tucson, my veins were carrying the very virus that flowed through the veins of the generations of queer men Moraga spoke of. I was a receptacle, not of death, but of opportunity and legacy. I am the descendant of men who were left to die under the shadow of merciless flags, men who were buried by the silence of confused and agonizing families. I come from a long line of Jotos. They are my lineage. Children of wilted sons. At the dawn of becoming a man, Tess dressed me in the red, thorny lace gown that once wrapped the necks of men who loved as I love. Children of sarape-covered couches, of atole-raised abuelas, of velvet Jesus churches, died alone, died in shame, in pale green hospitals. Children owed another day, waiting still, waiting long, for golondrinas to paint their sky. At the dawn of becoming a man, I donned drapes of their destiny. I became home, home to men who loved as I love. I am home, home to men who broke as I break, men who wait in me for the flight of golondrinas. I am the couch to their sarape, they are the atole that raises me, the velvet Jesus hanging over my bed. I am the orphan to their souls, carrier of pillaged dreams, the son of men who died for love, love airbrushed on the walls inside of me. Spirits dance every time I kiss a man and offered sacrifice, sacrifice to the memory of wilted sons. I am home, home to men who kissed as I kiss. Poetry is a site for remembrance. Through poetry, we scribe the story of those who have transitioned into spirit. We mourn the absence of their touch. We conjure their scent through our words. We make sense of our loss. We refuse to forget. Poetry is a site for memory. It is a kitchen counter where, like a freshly harvested onion, we begin to peel the layers of our complex desires. It is where, in our thirst, we fervently dig for the emanating waters of the loves we manifest. Metaphors are more than pretty substitutes for us to hide behind. They are nude articulations of truths birthed in the vulnerability that is our story on the page. They are the sharp thorns, espinas de huizache, lodged in our throats, waiting to be exhumed and planted into yours. Fallen saints, there is no kind farewell for the forsaken soul, no way to forgive the sin fighting for the life trapped within our bodies. There is no way of choking the faggot out of our throats, no way of flooding the drought, a life thought without spiritual meaning. There is no God for us, the fallen saints, virgins of tainted veins, martyrs of humane faith, prophets of our survival. No key to heaven's gate, no amazing grace, no rising the third day, no hope for revival, no more love for us, the sacredly slain. Poetry taught me how to make love to a man. The opening lines of Sandra Cisneros' Dulzura and Irma Mayorga and Vicky Grace's Panza monologues, poetic Panza ru Panza, a love poem from a butch Tejana, have all shaped the craft of my lovemaking. The poetry of these mujeres, along with Cherit Moraga's theory in the flesh and the lessons of black and Tejana butches, taught me that making love is an art form, a kinetic expression, and the manifestation of metaphorized articulations of desire. Hacer el amor es crear poesía con la herramienta de dos, quizás más, cuerpos entrelazados. Es el hilvanar sábanas con mudas frases de lujuriosa ceremonia. Poems are sex on the page. Chicharrón of my inhibitions. I am growing hungry for your left hip. My eyes crave morning feast in bed. They salivate as dogs over chicharrón, moths to a light. Skin that teases where the sheet folds, make me gnaw in sight. When morning light fights the night, your skin becomes moon to my waves, my lips meteors scattered across your sky. When your brown and my brown are merging, adobe brick layered on your skin, thick hardness, rough and brown, sweet lushness, moist and hard, my brownness becomes yours. When your toes curl up in prayer, the second heartbeat in you is mine. My lips leave hickeys across your neck, trails to find my way back. I leave drawings on your wall, remnants for the one who follows. I make love to a man with the fear, vulnerability, and irreverent devotion with which I forge a poem. His neck is my opening stanza. My tongue mines his thighs for abandoned desires left behind by previous lovers. As the late miners in my family, picking and diving into the depths of the Chihuahua mountains, I exploit the mountains of his body, searching for the hairline of metaphors glistening between the stories that line his tunnel. My muse is not mythical. Home to my wandering appetite. The fault line of your mountain rage draws my mouth as morning pulls the sun. As the moon tugs the sea, my tongue a ravaged wave beating you with every dive. The south side of your bustling back becomes home to my wandering appetite. Every homeless sigh hides in the cold from you. Every fingertip wanders the back alleys of your calves. The steep climb my breath makes into you threatens to leave me trapped in the moist grasp of your forested mountain walls, the sweet divide of flavor and gratitude. Chances are You have fucked a poem out of a poet before. And in your erotic incantation, the poet captures the beads of sweat from your lips and adds the story of your lovemaking to an ink-drenched canvas. Perhaps, decades from now, a young man will lay hands on the poem you ignited and taste the desire you fed your poet. For poets create artifacts. Poetry is a site for revolution. The poems that finger traces across your back is not void of politic. The poem carries the weight of crimes committed against the shades of our skin, the girth of our bodies, and the thread of our minds. The flesh of the poem knows your lovemaking is an act of resistance. The poem bears witness to the uprising of black and brown bodies, peaceful disobedience to carnal dictatorships. This is poetry of the flesh. Ode to a Brown Nude, after Pablo Neruda's Oda la Bella Desnuda. With jagged breathing, with hunger racing to reach your body, grasping a thread of light, so I may carve you onto the walls of my memory, lying naked in the afternoon, hidden from the hands of a Texas sun, shipwrecked off the sea of my thighs, beautifully crude, as hungry and brown as a Mexican Gulf, bathed in the black hair of your mestizaje, your chest, stomach, legs, all bountiful and wild. With each groan you bring me closer to the gods our bodies were meant to worship before we were taken, stripped from, and made into children of a land we never left. During my coming out years, I searched relentlessly for the works of queer Chicano men. I found some hidden in anthologies, others floating around journals, and a few written in the memory of patrons of San Francisco's Esta Noche nightclub. Little was accessible for the young gay man working with a dial-up modem, rudimentary computer skills, and fear of homophobic libraries. There are many theories attempting to explain the fact that so few publications exist by queer brown men of past generations. Among these, the theory that they were simply too busy fucking in the bushes. I refuse to believe my ancestors did not write. Yes, they may have been fucking in the bushes. But I know for a fact that poetry is written behind bushes, in bathhouses, in juke joints, and in our abuela's backyard. That publishing could not or refused to catch up with their writings is not an indication of their poetic silence. There were poets among them. There are poets among us. A publisher does not make a poet. Quimera. And because I straddle, I am desert-risen culebra. I am McDonald's fed Nintendo player, concrete stuck under the fingernails of memory. I am the hole in an old teenage shoe, the first public erection. I eat dirt from adobe walls, drink hope from strangers' mouths. There is no logic to follow me, only shriveled reveries, and yet I straddle. I am medley of unanswered plegarias, a novena for AIDS-related deaths, novena for my own. For the generation that shares my bed, I recite Hail Papis for us. I am my only danger, a lover of many lovers, chuparrosa en el bugambilias, abeja de seis panales. I am altar to nameless sugar skulls, a concoction of mismatched dreams, until you kiss me. Making sense of my fabrications, I become theory, stuck on your tongue. I become tongue, stuck on conclusions. And because I straddle, I am decay of alamedas, the haunting of lowrider days, a rebel creaking through no cruise zones. I loiter, beg for memories of those who could not leave. My soul is the echo of canyon walls. I am becoming beautiful, gray, thick, and carved by the knife of time. I am the mirror of men I have always chased. Older, not wiser, only older. Of the lines carved out by time, I guard them all. All are love and pain and loss and greedy lovers, missing teeth drooling in bed. I obey their tantrums, concede, offer them candy from other lips, flavored lube, condoms for the non-existent, absent as the one bent before me. Poetry is a site for documentation. In our poetry, we leave hints, signs of our struggles. We leave sketches of our tragedies, our hopes, our romantic and political breakthroughs. We leave proof that we were here, that we desired and fought and created and imagined a new way of loving, that we wrote, que siempre hemos escrito. Poetry is a site for audacity, a site for political putos to scribe our manifestos, a site for our peoples to imagine ourselves possible, to recognize each other as necessary, to present ourselves as whole. Poetry is a site for unlocking, dismantling, and eradicating the legislation of our bodies. Poetry is a site for justice. Venado dreams. Last night, I dreamt of your besos. I dreamt of the impious creed, your tongue in me, your moans calling ancestros. Drumbeats of ancient days flickered in heartbeats. Vastness of your violent sea, slashing, making waves in me, finding home in me, atado a tus besos. Marimba, your hips, your sway, offered in sacrifice, this son of reileras came home, no rifle left to guard. I dug, found water in your besos. The legs of my memories leaped through mesquite dreams, brought you sotol to feast, feeding you from my hands, decolonized my freedom, your besos. Licking the treaty scars, your lips, your sighs, your stubble and mine, your virgin lands not occupied, libre en tus besos. Child of revolutions past, made your tongue my mast, flew the flag of this reclaimed man, no rifle left to guard.